I'd love to welcome you to Master Your Life Beyond the Boardroom podcast, a place for ambitious individuals to capture proud moments on who they've become. It's a discussion that finds insights, the highs and the lows on where they have been at stages in their life. A safe space to share and openly talk about their journey. So if you're on a journey yourself and you're wanting to stretch, go further and farther than you've ever thought was possible, mastering your life is something that will connect you with your identity. I'm excited to be welcoming some very interesting guests to add value to your journey. For more information and to stay in the loop on what Master Your Life is all about and gain more value, head over to www.master-your-life.co.uk. Subscribe to my newsletter and stay in the loop. Let's get to it. Hey everyone, and welcome back to Master Your Life Beyond the Boardroom podcast. I'm your host, Luke Beastall, and I have, well, let's put it this way, a unique coach that is coming on today to share his story. Now, if you are somebody, and you've probably listened to previous episodes that is struggling with addiction, I have what is called an addiction coach, or the fancy term, cognitive hypnotherapist. But I'm going to introduce him just in a second. But what I really love about these episodes is how we actually connect. Now, Jake is actually someone that has got quite an influential part in mindset maintenance, which is down in Portsmouth. And I'd recently had a speaking event there, and we've just connected off the back of it. And this is what I really, truly love about inspirational events. People that are like-minded, you just kind of naturally connect together. So here we are, we're on a podcast together, we're shooting it, we're going to get stuck into Jake's story. I'm super excited because he was telling me briefly about it just before we kind of jumped on. So Jake, listen mate, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Luke. Thanks.
No, listen, it's an absolute pleasure to have you on. Now, obviously, I had briefly said a little bit about, obviously, your kind of like title, what it is that you specifically do. But obviously, I just want to allow you a little bit of space to share a little bit more about what it is that you specifically do.
Yeah, of course. So we'll talk about my journey kind of, I suppose, a little bit further down the line, right? But essentially, what I do is I typically work with people that are struggling with addiction. So that can be substance misuse, drugs, alcohol, or it can be other addictions as well, like technological addictions, food, sugar, caffeine, smoking, nicotine. There's so many different addictions that people talk about addiction and people just tend to go straight to drugs and alcohol, right? There's also a lot of mental addictions. So addiction to self-doubt, to procrastination, to resentment, to negative thinking. So addiction is a very broad terminology, but essentially I work with clients typically over a 90-day plus period to get them to their end goal. And not necessarily everyone has an end goal of sobriety. I've got clients that would like moderation. So they are drinking, let's say, 10 beers a day, but they only want 2 instead of 10. I use the tools within cognitive hypnotherapy and my own personal experience to get in deeper, to understand why are they doing what they're doing. Because essentially an addiction, 9 times out of 10, is escaping a core wound. So you think about an onion, right? It's got lots of different layers. And the outer layer tends to be the food, porn, gambling, drugs, drink, whatever that is. And then you've actually got the emotions kind of in the layer in the middle, which is anger, fear, guilt, shame, sadness, whatever that is. And then bang in the middle, you've got the core wound. And this doesn't necessarily have to be a massive traumatic event. This can even sometimes be my partner broke up with me, so I turned to drink. It doesn't necessarily have to be something which is life-changing, dramatic, like a 10-car pile-up or whatever, you know? So essentially, mate, that is me and what I do in a nutshell.
What's actually really stood out to me, Jake, is just the actual depth of addictions. People say it's normally typically drugs and alcohol. Like, I've thought that as well. Obviously, we know that people are addicted to their phones, right? But that's something that you help people with. That's actually pretty cool. I didn't even think of that as an addiction. What would you say is probably the most weird addiction that you've come across to date that is actually a real addiction that is common?
I wouldn't necessarily say it's weird. However, a lot of people are actually addicted to like toxic relationships.
Okay.
Craving a dramatic kind of relationship, right? Constant arguments. I'm sure you may think of someone, a friend, that is just constantly drawn to that toxic trait, that toxic person, because they're so accustomed and used to living that life. And there's a thing called the drama triangle. And I don't know if you've heard of the drama triangle before.
I've heard of it. Yeah.
So it's a relationship dynamic for the people that don't know. But essentially, a lot of the time, these clients spend most of their time in the victim side of the drama triangle. There's three. You've got the victim, you've got the rescuer, and you've got the persecutor. And a lot of the time, the clients spend their time in the victim mentality. Why is it always me? Why does this have to be me? Etc. etc. They just want to be rescued. They want someone to come and save the day. And it's a very toxic dynamic. So I coach and guide my clients to actually speak adult to adult, not being on a wanting to be rescued, not in the victim mentality. But if you come out of that, you just want to speak someone adult to adult. You don't want it to be, I need to be saved, I need to save you, why you're not saving the day. It's, okay, how can we talk about this in an adult to adult kind of dynamic?
I know that is quite common. I mean, not to kind of go away from this, from what you've said, but Married at First Sight, by the way, I don't know if you watched that, but there is some of that where people who go on there have been so addicted to that, have been so used to relationships where they've never really had compliments, they've had abuse in a way, and they've kind of been there for so many years. And that's kind of, I guess, they're wanting expert help from the experts to help them find somebody that's not going to do that. So I think even that drama triangle, I mean, I actually had been exposed to that from this like men's group that I was in, which I found was a bit odd, but it was really good stuff because I'd never heard of it before. But I think just because obviously we're going on to the knowledge side, mate, and obviously a lot of people probably be like, I definitely want to know more about this, but you've obviously got a true passion for this, Jake, which is brilliant to hear from just even you explaining that stuff. But I guess now there's obviously, I think this true passion lies within, especially if you've experienced it or you've been on the other side. So this is us kind of leading on to, where would you say, going back through your journey, that the addiction started for you?
Yeah. So I'll say where it first began, and then I'll tell you kind of where it was more prominent. So kind of typical childhood, right? You're growing up, you're kind of smoking the odd joint, and you're kind of doing all this and that to essentially fit in. And I always remember people at school saying that weed is a gateway drug. And I used to think, is it? And I can see how, because you get into those groups and then you smoke a joint, but then it's like, oh, should we try like a bit of coke here, or should we try a bit of ket or MD or pills or whatever? So I was kind of smoking weed and taking drugs throughout school. I mean, let's say 14, 15, I was probably smoking weed, right? And there was a drug going around at the time. I haven't really heard of it nowadays, but it's called MCAT.
And I've heard of it, yeah.
So that was like, I don't know, £10 for a gram or something, and we'd go to like a Subway kind of on a Friday night, and we'd do it, and it was fucked up. And essentially, even through college, I didn't really do too much, but I had a girlfriend at the time. I was with her for like 3 or 4 years, and I remember I used to watch Portsmouth play home and away. You used to go to all the away games. You used to get on the coaches at like 5, 6 o'clock in the morning. And as soon as I get on that coach, I'm sniffing my first line of Coke and I'm drinking my tinnies and I'm off and I'm going, you know? So that definitely fueled it. And I can imagine a lot of people can relate to that, go into the football away days, not caring what time of the day it is, but just getting fucked up just for the sake of it. And essentially, that's really where I believe it all started to go wrong. And the fuel to the fire was me breaking up with my partner. And it wasn't her fault. It was my fault. That was my way of dealing with that. I've actually lost 2 friends to drugs. A friend killed himself and a friend didn't die directly from drugs, but drugs was a byproduct and his death was kind of caused by that. And he was a best friend of mine and he was the guy that I always used to get on it with. We used to meet up on the weekend and we used to end up getting on it. And yeah, he died when I was in Bali. I went traveling. I'm kind of going a bit off tangent here. I'll come back in a minute. But essentially, he died when I was away traveling in Bali and Thailand and all of that. And that really hit home because I was like, I'm losing people around me here. Like, that's 2 friends that I've lost to drugs now. The first one killed himself because of drugs and the situation that he was in. And this one died because of his health, because he neglected it due to drugs. And that was all at 23. Like, I'm 25 now, and I'd lost 2 friends by 23 years old. And that really hit home. But kind of going back a little bit, I was going out partying, I was drinking, I was doing drugs. And a lot of the stories that I hear from clients, but also people that I'm friends with, is that they're not addicted. They can stop. But it's like, can you? Because every weekend you tell yourself, I'm going to stop. I'm going to stop. And that's after normally a come down on a Sunday, right? And then it gets to Wednesday, Thursday, and then you're back on it again. And then you're going round and round in circles. And I've got pictures on my phone and I've shared this on my Instagram. And I'm more than happy to share it here. Like, I used to get home some nights and lie in my bed. I used to cry my eyes out. Like, why am I like this? Like, why am I choosing this life? Like, the thoughts that you get after taking loads of coke and all of that, they're very intrusive and they're sometimes scary. So I decided, I went to Hideout Festival actually in Croatia, and that was the final moment for me. That was the straw that broke the camel's back, where I was there taking probably 3 to 5 pills a day, sniffing ket, drinking, partying, up all night, like such a toxic environment, but I wasn't aware of it. And after doing all of that, I booked a one-way flight to Thailand and Bali because I needed to get away. I had to. So I booked a one-way flight to Bali, and I actually not blocked everyone, but I completely turned off my social media. I kind of took myself out of the environment because addiction is broken into kind of 3 or 4 different areas. Environment is one part. Then you've also got the person's life experiences and also the reward circuitry within the brain. So I thought, all right, well, if I take one of those away, which is the environment, the other 2 kind of might sort itself out in the future or whatever. So yeah, I decided to go there, and I actually got to Bali and still carried on getting fucked up, still carried on drinking. And it actually took me probably 1 or 2 months to kind of pinch myself here and be like, if you're doing this in Asia, how are you ever going to stop? Like, I used Portsmouth as the excuse, as the blame.
Right.
I left Portsmouth and I'm still doing it in Asia. So is it the location or is it me? And that really struck home. So I knocked it all on the head in Thailand, done like a typical kind of trained in a Muay Thai camp, all this and that. And I came home in January 2023. So like 18, 19 months ago now. I suppose coming up to 2 years. And I come back, I got my own fitness coach, got my own hypnotherapist, and really decided to crack on. I got my fitness and my body and my mind in shape, but I came back and I still got on it. Like, I still went up the pub and got on the gear. And then I was like, right, that's it. And then I circled back again. And then a month later, I ended up getting on it again. And I've got it in my journal and I've got a picture of it. I sometimes put it on Instagram, and it was the day after that I'd last done drugs, which was last February now. So that's like 18, 19 months ago now. And I wrote how I felt. And I sometimes reflect on that, because that was a very low period of my life where I went away traveling. I thought that was the cure. I came home, got a therapist, got a coach, and I still got on it again. So this is a reminder to people as well, just while we're at this point, is that it's never a linear process. It's never Asia is the cure, therapy is the cure, getting a coach is the cure. They've all got a part to play, but sometimes relapse is part of the recovery, and sometimes it's actually needed. When a client of mine has a relapse, I don't see it as a negative thing, because we learn from it. So, okay, you relapsed. Why? What was the trigger? Did you have an argument with your girlfriend? Did you have an argument at work? Or what was the trigger here? And understand what we can learn from. And I learned a lot, and I discovered that obviously it was the people that I was hanging around with. It was the environment that I was putting myself in. So since that day, I haven't touched it, and I'm confident in saying that I won't be doing that again. So that was the kind of drug journey and the journey of self-discovery. And then I went on working with my therapist, even still to this day, 18 months later, and just absolutely loved the work that we did together. So much that I also took the same course as him, which is a cognitive hypnotherapy course, trained to be a cognitive hypnotherapist and an NLP practitioner. And yeah, the rest is history, mate.
No. Listen, Jake, amazing, mate. Like, obviously, I know we're getting onto the journey that obviously it's led you to where you are. There's actually a lot that I was just listening. I wanted to hear about it. I mean, the guys listening to this as well will commend you for putting a stop to it. And just what you said there about the relapse as well, of people that you obviously work with now, but also yourself. You're absolutely spot on. It's not a bad thing. It might mean that you have to go backwards before you go forwards. Or in your head, you might be thinking that. It's just that slowing down a little bit and just understanding that, look, how long have you been in this position for? You can't just expect now that you've spent the money on getting a great team in your corner. You can't say they're not a great team and great support and great accountability. They're not just going to fix it just because you've spent the money. You've got to work together. You've got to take those knockbacks. And yeah, we were talking a little bit about this off the camera, weren't we? About another guest that was on, and he was talking about he'd done this, he'd done that, and that didn't necessarily work, but it did lead him to create that breakthrough. And I think that's really important. But I think what's really interesting for me, and what I want to just kind of delve into a little bit more, is how you had stepped into these different environments, but you still couldn't seem to break that habit of being on the gear and getting, like you would say, fucked up, right? What kept bringing you back? Because you said that the feeling that you felt after was really awful. You didn't feel great. I'd love to know in your mind, or upon reflection, what still kept you going back to it, wherever you was in the world.
Yeah, I would probably say it was fear of missing out. I thought that I was missing out on something.
Okay.
I thought I can't sit by myself. I have to be out with these friends. I have to be doing something. Like, I hated my own company, and the thought of sitting with my feelings and sitting with my thoughts all night while I'm trying to come off the gear or whatever is fucking hard. And it is, and there's no sugarcoating it. But now I absolutely love my company, probably too much.
Yeah.
But I'm so comfortable within myself that I don't need any validation, or I don't need to fit in, or I don't need X, Y, and Z. I'm comfortable within myself. But if I rewind, I wasn't comfortable within myself. I was taking drugs, I was drinking, and I've been single for a few years now. And it's only recently, over these last 6 months, I've actually started dating. All those
Okay.
years past, I was just hooking up with girls. I wouldn't ever want to take them out on a date. I would just be like, "Do you want to come round?" And that was my external validation. That was making me feel worthy. That was making me feel like I was good enough. And that's not a good place to be in, right? So that also leads on to the other addictions. Maybe it's not a toxic relationship, but it's toxic people. It's needing the external validation in order to feel worthy. And obviously, as you and most people know listening to this, that's not a comfortable place either. So all of these different kind of areas or avenues lead to the same path, and that is me taking substances. And I do really feel like they were the ingredients that led to that addiction.
Yeah, and yeah, definitely. And I think that fear of missing out is obviously a big aspect of it, and especially if you didn't like your own company, being in silence, whatever, being on the buzz. I guess there's a lot of buzz and energy around it when people are like on it. You know, I mean, look, I'll be honest. I went out one New Year with my mates, and you know, I was the only one drinking Red Stripe without being on it. You know, and I was there. It was proper, you know, drum and bass kind of music, and they were looking at me like with the eyes wide open and everything. And I was just there like the normal one. And, you know, they're having the best time of their life. Like they were sweating out and living the dream and all that. But, you know, it wasn't my kind of cup of tea, and it never has been. But I think they were buzzing off it. But did it change? Would you say it changed who you was, Jake, when you was on it to when you wasn't on it in any way?
Oh, yeah. So I was the opposite. So you hear about it a lot when people are on the gear and they can't stop talking, right?
Yeah.
I was the complete opposite. Like, I would go so scatty, and I would like have to leave and go and do it by myself, or I'd be constantly like sketchy and looking around. And it got to a point where I would leave a party, for example. It wasn't even a social drug. I would do it. It'd be all right for about 30 minutes, and then I'd have to leave. Didn't even used to say bye to people. I literally used to backdoor it and just go and sit by myself, like in my car, or get a taxi back to mine or whatever, and just continue sniffing and sniffing. And that's when shit hit the fan. And that's when I knew, like, right, this is a problem. Because like I said at the start, a lot of people think they can change and they're not addicted and all this and that. When you've tried, I can probably comfortably say that I tried hundreds of times, because if I think about, I was addicted for probably 5+ years. That's 1,500 days. There's a probably strong probability that I probably tried over 100 times to stop, right? So I tried hundreds of times to stop and I couldn't. And that is where a lot of people are right now. Like, they think they can stop, but can they?
Yeah, I know that's the tough thing. I mean, obviously for you, kept fight like you just said, you tried so many times, you kept finding yourself back in it. Obviously, you've already said that the fear of missing out was a big role in it. But just thinking about it now, right? Looking back at it, if you could look at, you know, like the old Jake, what was you actually missing out on?
Well, I used to think I was missing out on a good night.
Right.
I used to think I was missing out on what if they've got a really cool story to tell the next day, and I wasn't there to see it.
Yeah.
That was one part. But the other part, very strong part, was looking back now with the knowledge that I have, I just didn't want to be within myself. Like, I was escaping who I was. I didn't like who I was. I wasn't going anywhere in life. Was I in debt? I had quite a bit of debt before then as well, but I also managed to pay that off. But nothing was really going for me. So, like, who cares if I go and get fucked up in the pub, because I don't even have anything to come back to on the Monday anyway. So does it really matter? So that's why I encourage my clients to find something that fulfills them, that lights them up, because I am where I am today And I wouldn't think twice about going out to the pub and getting fucked up anymore, because I've got people that depend on me. I've got clients, I've got a business, I've got something that is bigger than me. And sometimes that is where I see clients go wrong, is that they're not quite striving for something that is bigger than them. When you have a purpose and a vision that is bigger than you, it's very hard to throw it all away for a night out.
Like you say, people have been dependent on you. Obviously, they're investing in you, and you're obviously serving them. It fulfills you. It, like I say, it lights you up. It's a hard one to throw out, like you say, to go back to something that you know what it made you feel like. But just there were some bits there that you really shared, which were good, actually, where you'd spoken about, you felt like you had not much purpose. You felt like your life were going nowhere. You was in debt. So really, how did you afford these drugs?
Because you always find a way, don't you?
Yeah, but tell us about that, because this is where, you know, we talk about people that say, I've not got the money, right? Or I can't do these things, whatever it is, like booking a holiday or starting coaching journeys or whatever. So just love to know, like, what you managed to find a way.
Yeah, well, I was prioritizing this, right? I was prioritizing the partying, the going out. When people say they can't afford coaching, maybe that is accurate, but I sometimes challenge my clients to actually think, okay, is it the fact that you can't afford it, or are you just putting the money in the wrong avenues? Because you can afford to, I rewind when I was going out partying, I was spending probably £100-200 a weekend on drink and drugs.
Yeah.
I don't charge that in my coaching. So I could have easily replaced the drinking and the partying to invest in a coach or a therapist to actually help me get out of that. But it's the priorities, right? If someone doesn't necessarily want to change, it's very difficult to make someone see that, if that makes sense. So in answer to your question, it wasn't necessarily that I didn't have the money. I would always find a way, and I would be taking money out of my savings every week. Like I had a savings pot and I'd just constantly dip in and out of that. I was constantly in my overdraft. I was living paycheck to paycheck. I was going round in circles with it. And then I would beat myself up about it. I'd find a lot of guilt and shame because I haven't saved X amount of money, or that I've spent all my money in one weekend and now I've got no money for a week or two. It was a constant cycle, just going round and round and round in circles. So yeah, has that answered your question?
Yeah, it was pretty much just where did you find the money? Because, obviously it's always interesting. Like I've said it before about people that are on the streets, in a town local to us, not the town that I live in, but a town local to us where I was actually brought up. We see the crackheads, walking around, and they're homeless, right? But that they're having heroin or something. And it's how do they manage to still find a way? So it was just interesting to hear for you, because, there might be people listening into this that have previously had an addiction. They're probably relating a lot to what you're saying, Jake. And obviously they've probably been in a similar place where, they have been in debt, but they just keep digging deeper and deeper into that overdraft. But like I say, it was the priorities. And that's a big thing there that you've extracted from, that I think is really key to look at.
Yeah.
You can find a way,
Yeah, for sure. Because it wasn't like I didn't have a job. I was working full time. So it's not that I didn't have money coming in, but it was okay, where is that money going out? And what are my priorities? And that was the biggest factor for me, was that I was choosing to spend my money in those areas compared to somewhere else.
Yeah, definitely. And what was you doing full time back then?
So I was doing carpentry, and
wow.
Yeah. So I was doing carpentry. I was so shit. I was literally so bad. There's a lot of tradesmen and partying and drugs and going out the pub on a Friday night after work and all this and that. And that also added fuel to the fire. So when I left to go to Asia, I completely turned around my career. I went into sales and recruitment, and just literally did a whole 360 and just completely changed every avenue of my life, changed my identity.
Massively. So when did you start carpentry? If we just go into that.
Yeah, so I was doing carpentry. When did I start it? So I'm 25 now. So I started it when I was probably 18, 19. I was doing an apprenticeship. Worked for a guy in Portsmouth, and I'm not going to name any names, but he was a bit of a knob. And
Yeah.
he used to pay me probably 30, 40 quid a day. And I remember this one time I was the apprentice on a job, and I was working with an experienced carpenter. And because essentially when you're an apprentice, right, you're just like holding like a screw or like a drill or something, aren't you? You're not exactly really
Yeah. Yeah.
doing much. And he fucked up something on the job, and he docked both of our money. And I was like 40 quid a day or something, and he took my day's money because the guy messed it up. So that made me want to leave. So I left him, and I joined a friend's company doing loft conversions, and I was doing loft conversions and stuff, and it was great. Like I started at like 9, 10 o'clock every day, left at like 4. It was like perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was great. But it goes back to I'm a very hungry, ambitious individual, and I knew that wasn't what I wanted to do. I always knew that there was something bigger and better within me. And that's not to say that carpentry isn't a good avenue, but I always wanted to like own my own business, and I wasn't ever good at carpentry. Like I knew that wasn't the thing, and it was just kind of making ends meet, and I was just kind of doing things just to kind of get by. And then it nicely coincided with me going away to Asia, and I kind of hit the reset button.
Yeah, definitely. So I'm just now thinking then, with you saying carpentry wasn't for you, in the mind you was like, I wanted to run my own business. How did you even fall into carpentry then?
How did I? Good question. I think I just knew a guy that owned a carpentry business.
Right.
And I think he was looking for an apprentice, and I just applied, and then he was just like, yeah, cool. And I was kind of doing that for like 3 or 4 years.
Right.
And it was just like, I actually like carpentry as an idea, the fact that you're making things and like you're creative and stuff, but I never got to unlock that. I could do things, but I didn't have the creativity and the skills and the knowledge to make these cool wardrobes and make some stairs. That all sounds cool. But I was doing the shitty bits, like doing some skirting boards and the odd door frames or like stuff like that, and that just didn't really do it for me. So it kind of fell in my lap, and I kind of stuck with it for like years. But yeah, it's well, I suppose hindsight's a wonderful thing, right? And you sometimes wish you didn't do something like that, but that's kind of fueled me and got me to where I am today. And I like to look at every part of my life as a chapter, and that chapter taught me something. And when you go through something like that and you have a working environment that doesn't quite do it for you, that's like your fuel to go and leave and to go and do something bigger and better.
No, listen, like this is great, because a lot of people kind of say, discover in your 20s, find yourself in your 30s, you hear all these terminologies. But I think for you to recap on that 3 to 4 years of your life in carpentry that you don't even know how it even happened, it just happened, I think is brilliant. But just even if we go back a little bit further, Jay, like back into your childhood and stuff like that, how you said you was ambitious, you wanted to run your own business. Has that come from family influence? You got parents that have got their own businesses, or you've been around people? I just wondered, like, what was your childhood like growing up? What was you into and stuff?
Yeah, no. As a short answer,
Okay.
My mum's a nurse and my dad's a ground worker.
Okay.
Very kind of British working class family,
Yeah.
Where did it come from? I've always been ambitious. I've always watched like Dragon's Den and The Apprentice. I've never settled for less. Like I've always strived for more. And in answer to your question, I wouldn't be able to put a pin on it and say it came from this. I studied business at school. I studied business at college. I went to uni and studied business as well, stupidly. But I always knew that I wanted to own and run a business, but I never knew what. And that's always the hardest part. I'd bash my head against the wall like, why has this idea not come? Why has this idea not come? Like, I'm always thinking of like just like the next iPhone or like the next bloody like light bulb or something, you know, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a revolutionary, groundbreaking product that's going to blow the world up. And I think that's where a lot of people go wrong as well, is they're always looking for that perfect product, that perfect business, whatever that looks like. But really, imperfect implementation is the aim of the game, right? Just go and do something and you'll adapt. Like the business that I'm running at the moment, I'm sure that I'll adapt and grow and evolve with the business as the years go on. And it's probably the same for you and the same for everyone that's listening as well. You swim with the tide of the market and you go with the market and the way that things are going. So if you see a gap, if you see or something lights you up that you want to kind of dive into a bit more or put some more time and effort into that, then go and do it. Because if you wait until you're ready, you'll never be ready.
Yeah. Oh, listen, mate. All this stuff you're saying, I think is I don't think people can not hear it enough. You know, because they'll be like, but I've got to do this, I've got to have this in place. But you know, you at the age of, was it 22 or 23 that you decided to just get on that plane and go to Bali?
23.
23. Did you go on solo as well?
Yeah.
There Changed you go. Well, okay then. So what brought you to that place to go, I'm booking that? What was it, a one-way ticket as well?
Yeah. Well, I went in September knowing that I wanted to be back for Christmas. So
okay.
It was a loose one-way.
Yeah.
Flight. It was actually one way, but then I knew I was coming home for a certain day.
Yeah.
Honestly, that going solo changed my life because I'm such a confident person. Like, friends say to me, like, how can you just go and approach people in like a bar?
Yeah.
Because I've gone and I've done it. Like, I had to do it when I was in Asia. Like, I had friends that wanted to come with me and I said no. Like, I need to go by myself. Like, this is for me. And so I went by myself solo, came back, but then just to fast forward a couple of years, I've actually been living in Spain by myself as well over the so I lived in Malaga over the summer and I lived in Albania solo. The growth that happens when you travel solo, I just can't recommend it enough to anyone. Like, you don't have the comfort of home, you don't have the comfort of your friends. You have to go and speak to people in the gym. You have to go and approach people in a bar. If you don't do that, you're going to be lonely, right? So having to put yourself in those situations, and it just gets easier and easier. It's just like going to the gym. The first time is quite difficult. You get DOMs after, like, and all that. Yeah. And then it becomes easier and the muscle starts to grow and starts to grow. And it's the same with the mind. It is a muscle, right? So as your experience gets stronger, so does your confidence and everything else that comes from it. And it all becomes a lot easier.
Yeah, I can tell, mate, that it was a revelation for you, kind of going out there on your own. I love that as well, the growth, just going out and approaching people. I mean, communication, people just don't want to do it. They'd rather hide behind screens rather than have a conversation with a human, which is just baffles me. But, you know, for you then, just going on to the Bali experience, what was the biggest thing that you learned from that whole experience of Bali?
To be comfortable within yourself. To not be striving. And look, we're all guilty of it, right? And it's easier said than done. But I'm actually reading Steve Jobs' autobiography at the moment. And on his deathbed, he said, the journey is the reward. And it's so true. Like, his success and happiness didn't come from building the iPhone. It was the journey building up to the iPhone. And it's the same with life. And that kind of resonated when I was in Bali, is that we're constantly striving for this perfect life, like everything else that entails with it. But why don't we actually just enjoy the beauty of life? Like, I'm sat in a bloody rice field with no distractions, no worries in the world, like no commitments. And I was happy, and I still am now. But I was happy within myself. I learned a lot about myself. And when you are solo for 3 or 4 months, you do learn a lot about yourself. And I did a lot of meditation, a lot of yoga, a lot of kind of gym and everything like that. And it all kind of pieced. And it's the typical, I kind of found myself over there, you know? It's It is the typical saying, and people say it all the time, but it is true. Like when you put yourself in an environment like that by yourself, you do learn a lot about yourself. So the key takeaway was to be happy within yourself.
Yeah, and I think that really does, by the way, link very well to what you said earlier on in the episode, Jake, about where you had said that you didn't like your own company, you hated it. And then now when you said about Bali, finding yourself, meditating, being in your own space, I mean, you've got to love your own company, right? Or you've got to get to love your own company. But you actually did love your own company. And then, like you say, you started building this new identity that you was comfortable in, which is brilliant.
Yeah, for sure. And I haven't really thought about it like that until you read it back to me, but I was seeking that, I suppose. And I did get there in the end. And I encourage anyone that's listening to this that if you're not quite confident or comfortable within yourself, go and put yourself in those situations. And it can be very, very difficult to start with, but start small, right? You don't need to book a one-way flight over the other side of the world, but maybe go out for dinner by yourself. Like last night, I went to Nando's by myself. Table for one, please. Sat in the corner, loved it. Like, like
cheeky.
Exactly, mate. And it doesn't have to be like going solo holidays if you're not ready for that. Just go to a bar by yourself and just smile at someone, make eye contact with someone, and they'll probably be in a similar position to you. We all tend to forget that everyone else has their own shit going on, and without putting it, well, this is quite a blunt way to put it, but no one actually really cares. And what I mean by that, yeah, and what I mean by that is you've got your own shit going on, I've got my shit going on, everyone's got their stuff going on, and everyone's so stuck in their own head anyway that they're not even thinking about you. So just go and make that conversation.
Yeah, no, I think that's a brilliant bit. And honestly, Jake, it really stood out to me when you were sharing that. I was thinking, yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, obviously the dots connect anyway, but it now, like what you said, you were seeking that. You was like, I want that meaning, I want that purpose, I want to find myself. And that was you getting away from what has been the normal for so many years, where you felt probably, I'm not around the right people. I just want to go, don't follow me. Just let me do my own thing and let's see what happens. And just for you then, obviously being around this, I mean, I've not been to Bali myself, but obviously I've got people out there and they've spoken very highly of it, such as the meditation, the retreat stuff, learning about yourself, being more relaxed, getting out of the chaos to the calm. From the Bali then, is that when I know you said you went to Thailand and then you stopped, but was Bali also a place where you decided then to seek out more like help with the hypnotherapist and stuff like that? Was that a bit of an answer to you? Was there any sort of treatment that you was having out there, or?
No, not at all, to be honest. I was listening to a lot of podcasts and I just had in my head that I wanted to be a mindset coach.
Right.
I don't know where it came from. I was listening to quite a lot of Rob Dial, the mindset mentor, actually. I don't know if you've heard of him before.
I've heard of him, yeah.
Yeah. So I was listening to a lot of him and maybe that's where it came from. I'm not quite sure. But I didn't actually do any, I'm just trying to think, didn't actually do any yoga, any meditation, anything really over there.
Okay.
So I did Bali, Vietnam, Cambodia, Thailand. Bali was my first destination. So I was still partying and drinking then. So that was more my party phase. And I even started smoking, which I haven't smoked in years. So I started all of that. And then as I edged towards Thailand, that's when I thought, right, I've got 6 weeks now. Like I need to crack on, because I'm coming home soon. So that's when I started doing the Muay Thai camps and knocked the drink on the head. Did a bit of yoga, not much. A bit of meditation. Again, not anything revolutionary. It was more when I came home, I actually reached out to my fitness coach and said, do you know any mindset coaches? He pointed me in the direction of my current coach. And then that's how the ball started to get rolling. So I'd love to say it all clicked to me in Bali and it all came to me there, but it came actually when I came home.
Ah, right. Oh, that's interesting then, because obviously you'd been all over, found yourself kind of thing, but you obviously would have come home with a whole new perspective, new person, the way you were feeling. Like, when you step back on English soil and you went back home after your 4 months away or so traveling, what was the biggest change for you when you started like looking around and being around people again?
That no one had changed. That everything was still the same.
Yeah.
I came back thinking, I don't actually know what I was thinking. I kind of hoped, I think that's a good word. I hoped that people had changed, and I came home and nothing had changed.
Yeah.
And then even fast forward again 2 years, still nothing has changed. Everyone is still up the pub doing the same stuff day in, day out. And it's like, when are people going to realize? But my perspective of life changed in the fact that I know and I knew that there's so much more outside there compared to your kind of hometown. I'm such a big believer in leaving your hometown, and that's where the growth happens, especially if like I've got no kids, I've got no partner. So if not now, when? Like, now is the best time. So that's why I booked a one-way flight to Malaga. I was there for 3 months. I could only stay for 3 months because of the EU situation, like Brexit, only allowed 90 days in the EU. So I had to leave there, and then I went to Albania for a bit, and now I'm home for Christmas. But I know the power of leaving your comfort zone, and I'm a big believer in the growth happens outside the comfort zone. And I'm always looking to push myself in avenues, whether that is a new business venture or maybe a new relationship or maybe a new environment or location, like whatever that is. I'm always looking to, I want to say, seek discomfort. Discomfort's probably too strong of a word, but I'm always looking to get out of my comfort zone.
Well, that's good, mate. The fact that, you've come back, it's so true. People are not really changed, to be honest. You hope they would. You hope maybe they've decided to do something similar to yourself, but not maybe on the same level, but just at least knock it on its head or do it whatever. But yeah, you're absolutely spot on, mate. People don't. But I think where you said, growth happens out of the comfort zone is massive. But gosh, mate, to try and get people to even think about that is a whole other story. It can be quite challenging, but I think the thing that you did where it was that unknown, booking that ticket, making that commitment, I think is commendable, really, because it was even something I did at the age. I made a life-changing decision. That's what changed me, and I always talk about that. And I'm not going to talk about it in this episode because it's your episode, but it's exactly what changed me, Jay. I can relate to what you're saying. Getting on that flight, I just got on a cruise ship for 9 months. It was like packing my bags away. So I fully get it changes you as a person. And you do. You kind of find yourself. So when you decided then, when you got back home and you started this journey of becoming an NLP practitioner, cognitive hypnotherapist, obviously you had your journey first. What made you go down that specific avenue?
My experience with my coach.
Right.
I experienced it firsthand. I just loved the journey of the client, but also the lifestyle my coach lived, like working on a laptop, like traveling the world, having that freedom, that location flexibility. That is a great part of the process as well. But the number one thing was that I absolutely loved the progress that he made with me. Like, I was a changed. I worked with him over the course of 12 to 18 months. And I was a changed man, completely changed man. So in answer to your question, I got down that avenue. And the reason why I've gone down that path is because of my own experience through cognitive hypnotherapy. And I believe it's the best therapy training in the UK that you can get. And the reason why I believe that is because it's very different to standard therapeutic approaches, where the founder, Trevor Sylvester, has gone to lots of different therapies, so like CBT, Ericksonian, Gestalt, Timeline, all of these different therapies, and combined it to one. So we've got loads of different approaches and loads of different techniques in our toolkit that form cognitive hypnotherapy. And it's not a one-size-fits-all approach. You come to me with anxiety, for example, and let's say Joe down the road comes to me to anxiety. I wouldn't read the same anxiety script as most therapies do. I meet you in your model of the world. If I can see your rep system as visual, I'll tailor my language and my approach to suit your rep system. And it's the same for Joe down the road. And a lot of my work as well is actually sometimes undoing other therapies work. And what I mean by that is some therapies are just talking therapies where there's no actual solution or intervention. It's just reinforcing the problem. Whereas this is solution based. So we'll talk about it, but then we'll actually get to the bottom of it and reframe it and use an intervention or a technique to help you through that.
This is really good, mate. Obviously, even you talking about that, how it's combined. I mean, for anyone, there's obviously loads of different therapy routes and stuff like that. But for you, what would you say was the biggest shift for you from going through this experience? So now you're skilled in it, you're certified in it, and you do it on a daily basis. But yeah, what was the biggest change for you?
Yeah, good question. I mean, I see it day in, day out with clients where they'll have a session and there'll be a breakthrough session and they'll be like, oh my God, that session changed my life.
Right.
I didn't necessarily have that. Mine was more of a cumulative kind of compound effect where I was a 5 out of 10. Now I'm a 6 out of 10. Oh, I was a 6 out of 10. Now I'm a 7. Like, it was just a gradual improvement. But like, I had a client, he emailed me just now and said that session absolutely blew his mind. Like, it changed his life, like amazing words. So it can happen in one session, but for me, it was just a cumulative kind of compound effect.
Yeah, what did it change in your life though, Jake, from this cumulative effect, like this compounding? What was the transformation for you in your life?
The way that I looked at myself.
Right.
I never used to give myself self-love, compassion. I never used to be, just like I mentioned before, I never used to be happy within myself. I was constantly seeking external validation and kind of constantly glued in that vicious cycle of like social media and dating the wrong people and everything like that. So it changed the way that I looked at life and also the way that I changed the view on myself.
The reason I'm asking you, man, really, is because there's a common theme coming up, obviously, from what you said, and it is obviously about the love for yourself, you know, and being actually comfortable in your own skin, right? And not actually caring what other people think as well, and not thinking I'm going to miss out. I'm happy being in my own company, and that's okay. And obviously now, yeah, like what you said, you know, obviously, look, everybody's different, right? Every individual's different. I just wanted to put the focus on you in terms of what you had experienced, what had changed for you, which is brilliant. So, mate, we are kind of getting towards the end of the episode, to be honest, and it's kind of flew by.
I know.
To be fair, but there is a question that I want to ask you, and this is related to actually the podcast. You probably heard it on, because I know you said you listened to a few episodes, but I'd just love to hear your perspective on this question. So, are you ready for it, mate?
Yes, mate.
All right, let's go. So, Jake, what does mastering your life mean to you?
I would say it is having full control of your behaviors and the actions that push you towards where you want to get to. And what I mean by that is, if you think about a master in life, right? They're the person that people go to. They're the mentor like figure. They're the gatekeeper, whatever you want to call them. They are the role model. And I believe if you master your life, you are a role model in your own life. And forget about the people around you. If you're confident that you've mastered your own life and you are your own role model and you are happy within yourself, it links nicely back to the self-love and everything like that. I believe that is mastering your life.
Beautiful, mate. Sweet. And it does. Honestly, it's kind of concluded the pieces that you've shared today, which I think, you know, I mean, I always kind of say anyway, jokingly, that, look, we're never going to truly master our lives, but it's nice to hear the version of what it would be for you and what it would mean to you, what it would feel like to you. So, no, listen, I really appreciate that definition, mate. And honestly, it's been like amazing to have you on. But just before we kind of get towards the end, where can people find you if they want to connect with you online?
Yeah, so I'm on Instagram, so at Jake O'Connor Coaching, also on LinkedIn, Jake O'Connor, and also my website is thejakeoconnor.co.uk.
Fantastic, mate. I mean, obviously, this is our first time officially having a conversation. It's been an absolute pleasure.
No, thank you for having me on, mate. It's been an absolute pleasure. And maybe if you're down in Portsmouth one day, we'll go for a coffee.
Yes, definitely, mate. Especially with the community group I saw you getting stuck into as well.
Yes. Yeah. Trying to get into that, mate. Trying to get into that.
Brilliant stuff. I'm sure I'll be down Pompey one day, mate. That's for sure. But no, thanks again, bud.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you so much for tuning in on this episode. If you found this useful and it's provided value to you, if you don't mind, go onto my channel, tap follow, and keep in the loop for more podcast episodes like this. And if you want to go one step further, please leave us a positive review. It would mean the world to us, and it would help spread the message to many more people. And also, if you want to go that one step further again, tag us on socials, drop us a message. I will always respond. Look forward to seeing you on the next one.